that you can be heard on the tape. There we go. Tape recorder, it's May 29, 1988. We are sitting in a summer house of the John Gotwalds. Present are President Betty Fisher of the Clark County Historical Society, Marie Gotwald, and John Gotwald. They are long-term residents of Springfield and know a great deal about everything in town. And I will ask John to start off however he wishes.
Well, I thought maybe you might be interested in the King family. David King was an orphan in Baltimore. His father having died, mother and father having died of cholera around before the 1800s. And a family by the name of Quigley came to town and found him and took him back to their farm in near Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. He grew up to manhood, and my grandmother Gotwald, who went to interview them back in 1870, was said that of all the her children who were born at the time, my father, Robert C. Gotwald, was the most like David King, who kept his original name and did not take the name of the Quigley family. When he's about 21 or 2, he left the Quigleys and moved to Portsmouth. And there he met Almina Caldwell, whose mother was Hamlin, and I believe Almina Hamlin, I'm not sure. And it was her brother who was in Lincoln's cabinet, President Lincoln's cabinet, the Hamlin. And then going back to David King, he married Almina Caldwell in approximately 1830, 31, somewhere in that area. And they moved first to Tarleton, Ohio, where he set up a store. On one of his trips east to get merchandise, when he returned home after 6 weeks, he found all 3 of his then living children when he left dead.
Oh my.
Smallpox.
Smallpox.
Oh my.
Then from there they moved to Springfield, David King having heard of the National Road coming through here in 1837. When he got to Springfield, they settled in a house which I vaguely remember, which is now where the old Davidson Chevrolet automobile agency was on West Main Street. Yeah. And he opened up his business on the southeast corner of Main and Limestone, which is now where the M&M Bank is. And he ran that business from 1841 to 1849. And I must say, it is unbelievable to realize how much downtown property he accumulated in those 8 years. After his death, his wife, wanted to get her sons away from the saloons on Main Street. So she moved out in the country across Buck Creek and built the house where the Chi Mega sorority is today. her great big help, the man who helped her the most, was Isaac Ward. That's where we get the name of Ward Street. Who built what is now the Gano House. And the Gano House was built approximately 1845. Grandmother King's house was built, they moved in about 1852. There she raised her 7 children, of which one of them was my grandmother, who later married Luther Alexander Gotwald, who came to Wittenberg Seminary in the mid to late 50s. And it might be noted that family tale has it that he took his shower bath in what is now the waterfalls in the lower part of Ferncliff Cemetery.
All year round?
They were married. Grandmother King, Mary Elizabeth King, was married to Luther Alexander Gotwald in 1859, October the 12th, in the bay window, which is still visible in the Chi Omega House. They had 9 children, one of which is my father, who was born in 1864, and he was a engineer graduating from Lehigh University. Spent 5 years on the Burlington Railroad building bridges, and then when his family started building downtown property in Springfield, he came back here and was the architect for what was originally the Gotwald building, became the M&M building, and the King building, which has gone down,
RQ.
and the RQ building. Now it might be interesting to know where the name RQ comes from. One of Almina King's son was named Robert Quigley King, and he was always called by his contemporaries RQ. And so when he built the RQ building, he just called it RQ building after RQ King, Robert Quigley King. Is that it?
What talking about Uncle Fred?
Oh, then another one of grandmother's sons was Fred Gotwald, who he was a minister. His other brother having died suddenly in Kansas as a minister, he became a Lutheran minister and started Fifth Lutheran Church and Calvary Lutheran Church. And he married a York lady by the name of Julia Small.
Tell me where they lived.
And they lived in the house just north of the Chi Omega House on North Fountain Avenue. Another son of Grandmother Gotwald's was David King. He was a doctor, and he lived north of Fred Gotwald's house on North Fountain. And the widow of George, thank you. The widow of George Gotwald built the corner house now where Robert and Mildred Rimsburg lived on North Fountain Avenue. At the same time, their mother was living in the house that her mother had built, which is now the Chi Omega House. And also, it might be interesting to say about the Ward house across the street. The Ward, Isaac Ward, who helped grandmother, the widow, great-grandmother, the widow, build the present Calmega house. His daughter, his son, by the name of I. Ward Fry, he was the father of Helen Fry Schmidt, whose daughter is Nan Foray.
Mary Gray.
And Mary Gray, who lived down at Houston. What's the name of that? Well, is that it? Let's turn it on.
You were saying, John, that these folks moved to the country to escape the 122, I think, saloons in downtown Springfield, which are a humongous number of saloons. Marie recalls that there was no bridge there. How did you get from the country?
Footbridge.
Oh, there was a footbridge.
Yeah.
They didn't take carriages across.
No, the Limestone Bridge was there.
Limestone Street Bridge. Was there a waterworks there?
A mill.
A mill.
Barnett Mill, which is now where the dry cleaners are.
Is it a true story, or is this just folk tale? I was told that during one very cold winter, youngsters were skating on Buck Creek, and that a youngster with a long muffler, you know how they used to skate with these long mufflers behind them, I was told that there was a turbine, and the youngster's muffler was caught up in that turbine, and she was caught up in the turbine and was slapped around each time it went around until an ambulance, which was a horse and wagon with straw in it, could come and get her and take her to the hospital. I think that's a true story.
No, not because the creek was frozen. Why would the turbine be running?
Good question. The creek was frozen. I think it was frozen all the way down, or just on the surface. Of course, it's shallow.
It had to be frozen far enough. The water had to get
to the
out to the top and go down to turn the turbine, and then it had to go away somewhere.
Yeah. Good point.
I don't know.
We're now talking about
Yeah, well, don't worry about it, because John
Mr.
can get
King.
the right tool.
in about 1937 when he
Mary
bought
Cook
lots
is
of
now
downtown
Betty Fisher
businesses.
here from the
19
Historical Society.
1837, I'm sorry.
So I will tell John. I'll tell John. Okay. So don't do anything about it. He'll fix it.
Tape recorder, the telephone's on at the same time. So you heard Marie talking to a telephone that just rang, and here we are.
Now wait a minute. He owned from the southeast corner of Main Street up and including the old Boston store. Does that mean anything?
Yep.
It isn't there now.
Yes.
And then he owned from the State Theater on Fountain Avenue up to High Street and around the corner to the alley where, well, I don't know what's there now, nothing. Just parking lot.
When did the arcade come into prominence at the...
1884.
But that was about 50 years later. Mm-hmm.
Much later.
Mm-hmm.
And then he owned houses, they always said, down on Wittenberg Avenue. But I didn't. This is all hearsay with me. And,
at that time, what comprised the downtown area?
oh, there was lots of industry down there.
I mean, what were the boundaries of the
Well,
so-called boundaries?
I think that the boundaries were, I would say, Center and Spring and probably Jefferson and the creek.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and that confines what we're talking about as far as the land's concerned.
Was the Pennsylvania House within that?
Oh,
That
no,
was a
no,
stagecoach
that's-
house.
We're out.
And that was quite a ways out. Was there a downtown hotel?
Oh, yeah.
This
There was
area?
a Cherry Hotel. I wish I could remember where these were, but it'd be easy
all right.
to
We can
find.
find them.
They're probably in these
I would
directory
think so.
sheds.
Mhm.
and the Murray House. Murray House. And I'm sure there were others.
What was the one down with the
Bookwalter.
railroad?
The Bookwalter, I bet it was there.
Yeah, B-U-C-H.
I think so. You know who? Did you ever talk to Bud Martin? I'll bet he could tell you.
I've got him on my list. What we were thinking about doing with Bud Martin was to have a symposium of, starting with Lou Mendelson and working up to Bud Martin, Marty Cook's age and people of that age, and see if we can do a symposium on the change in medical payments from the days when you used to get chicken if you were lucky to the days when now we have to hire 3 clerks in the office for one doctor.
That's right. Terrible.
Cheers.
I just went to the dentist, and my dentist has always been so reasonable, and he really sucked me.
Oh, well.
We had to hire all that help to fill out all those forms.
That's right.
That's right.
Right.
Terrible. Well, now let's see. Is there anything else? Well, I don't know whether you want to get into the farmers, the Yazel family, which is the other side.
We're not. Y-E-A-Z-E-L.
And you know, we have a complete genealogy of the Yazels going way back, and I can't read it. It's so tiny.
I can't either. It's just...
Someday we ought to find somebody to type it out for us.
I think that's a very good idea. When you do that, would you kindly give the Clark County
Oh,
Historical
you know we
Society a
would.
copy of it?
Right.
You know we would.
We are looking for any precious papers or copies of precious papers like that. Family Bibles, family histories, business histories, industrial stories, anything that would be of interest. Please give it to us for a repository.
I sure would. Well, when we start digging. Aren't you thankful for what Mary Miller did?
Aren't we thankful?
Oh.
Yeah,
And
Mary-
some of these documents are just priceless.
Yeah, she did so much in her days at the library, and may still be doing it. I don't know.
She's
I think so.
still doing a lot.
Yeah, she really is. Carol Gabriel tells me she's in every couple of weeks with another reading list, another bibliography. Carol, you should read this, she says.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have that
I
transcribed, or
think
if there's
that
any
would
way
be
we can help
better
you.
if we skipped the Yazels. Now, you knew that my grandmother, Yazel, married a Ward, and it was his, and her husband was born where the Springfield Country Club is. That was a Ward farm.
That was a way out, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, way out.
Hmm. Well, did all these families only own land, or did they get into some industries eventually?
Well, certainly none of my side of the family ever
No, the
got.
Yazels or the Foleys or the Wards.
No, or the Gotwalds or the Kings. They were.
They were all landowners.
Well, the
and
Gotwalds, of course, were all preachers.
preachers.
They made lots of money.
Really, truly. Now, how did a preacher make any money in those days? You had one doctor.
What my grandfather said in his autobiography, he said, "Children, you all your worldly blessings to your grandfather, David King." The one
That was it.
that worked 8 years.
Yeah, right. Is his autobiography available?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if we have it.
Oh no, because there's only one copy.
But I don't think you'd want it.
I don't know.
There's so little of Springfield in it. See, he was born in Aaronsburg and Pennsylvania, and then they moved all over the country and finally located here as preacher of Second Lutheran Church, which is now Good Shepherd, which is joined with Fourth, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to the seminary,
And then he went to the seminary.
and he was tried for heresy.
Now that
You're kidding?
I'm
Tried
not
for
kidding.
heresy?
And there's a book about that. It's in leather-bound book.
Robert Remsburg has a copy of this book.
John, you have a copy too. I gave it to you for your Christmas present one year.
Thank
I
you.
found it down at a second-hand store.
I forgot.
So we have 2 copies
We
now.
have 2 copies.
He was tried for heresy.
Yeah,
Is
and
this
there
the
was-
Missouri Synod again
After all
raising
those
its
years in the
head?
church?
No, they were just very strict Lutherans at Hammond Divinity School then, and one of his close friends was the father at St. Rayfield, Father Sidley or something like that at St. Rayfield, and another one was the pastor of the Presbyterian, First Presbyterian Church,
About what years are we talking about?
1890.
And your grandfather name was?
Alexander Luther Alexander Gotwald.
And who tried him for heresy?
The seminary divided
Mm-hmm.
two factions, and the narrow,
The seminary tribe?
you know, what's
But
another word
didn't
for
bring
narrow?
out of town people.
Narrow. Can't think of another word, but
The stricter of the two
strict.
groups.
Yeah.
But it ruined his
they-
health.
Yeah. Then he had a stroke and lived 7 years. But anyway,
He was acquitted.
he was finally acquitted. But you see, he was very ecumenical, and that was a sin back in those days when you had a good friend, a Catholic.
I'm not a Springfield, as you know, and there's a lot that I don't understand.
You know, I was telling Margaret O'Neill about this
Uh-huh.
just yesterday, and then
Was she?
and then she told me that you had interviewed her, and she
Fascinating.
said that that's why, you know, she didn't go to Wittenberg because she was a Catholic, and she thought she'd be ostracized in those days.
Her mother very much wanted her to go to Wittenberg.
Isn't this unbelievable?
Yeah.
I mean, looking at it from the point of view today.
Yeah, really unbelievable. One thing I don't understand is why there were so many Lutheran churches in this town. As the Catholics, it seems to me, typically made one or two large churches, and the Lutherans made many smaller churches. Am I correct in that?
The only reason I can think of is that the Lutherans were egotistical, and most Lutherans would rather be a big duck in a little pond than a little duck in a big pond.
Well, and see, the seminary was here. All these
Doesn't
people had
that
to
make sense?
go out and get jobs,
Well, there's a lot of places to employ
so they
their
just go out and
graduates.
get a new church.
But when you think about it, the Catholics had no say.
No, they
The
didn't.
lay people.
That's
The
right.
Archbishop told them what to do, and they
So
did it. Although they're not quite that docile anymore, are they?
No. No
Well,
way.
Not the way I hear them talk.
Did this have something to do too, John, with the various German movements into the city of Springfield?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Each one of them that came brought some things with them that caused the church to be that much different.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking
The
over a
others that
period
were
of
already here. Over a
50
period of
years,
time.
perhaps?
50 years,
Mhm.
yeah. You know, you used to always say, like, if you owned a rental or something in the West End, those honest, hard-working Dutch, you had nothing to worry about your rent. But things aren't that way anymore.
That's another story. I'd like to know if it's apocryphal. I got this from very good authority. And I think it sets itself roughly in the 1918s, 1920s. I was told that a Catholic priest, whose name I'd never heard, was very careful to tell all his young lady parishioners who had graduated from high school that they would never again go into household service. They were to learn typing and counting, and they would never again be maids. Is that true, do you think?
You know, if I had to guess, I'd say yes.
But tell me what somebody said that they always wanted to
My
hire.
father always said he would much prefer somebody that came from St. Rayfield's High School or Catholic Central than a public school. Their grammar, their spelling, everything was better.
That's interesting.
No question about it. He always.
Yeah,
I
and
have
that sounds like it's true. It really does, you know.
And what
Well,
is
very rigid rules
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And very
And the
rigid
schools.
rules in some of the other religious sects.
Those
Yeah.
nuns are
living
good teachers.
Living among the Dunkards, as I do, there is the
yeah.
old order and the new order Dunkard, and there is a difference in the two groups.
Do the Dunkards have their own schools by any chance nowadays?
Not in our area, they don't. But I'm sure that was true of the Lutherans too. There were
Oh, they had
the
private
strict
schools.
Lutherans, and there were the others that probably were not as strict.
Yeah, I think so.
Are you saying then that something I should follow up on, that the Germans perhaps who came over at the time of Bismarck might have had different approach to churches or to community life than the Germans who came over prior to World War I, or those who came over very early?
I think you're right.
Uh-huh.
They had a different approach. They were more oriented to hard work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at look at that beautiful church they built, St. John's.
Yes.
What's St. John's?
St. John's Lutheran Church.
Oh, that's German.
That
Yeah,
one,
that's
that
German.
one, yeah.
German, yeah. Reverend Pfeiffer down there, you know, he one time he preached 2 sermons a day, one in German and one in English.
Yeah, but there are a lot of German Catholics though in this town.
Yes, there are.
Well, yeah, but not as many, mostly Irish. I used to always hear that it was the Irish pennies that built St. Raphael. And I don't know. Now, I think I'm absolutely sure that sounds like Father Buckley, who was the rigid priest up there for so long, would have made that statement. None of his people could work as housemaids, which I think was very smart of him.
Yes, I think he did the right thing.
This
To
is
encourage the girls.
Father Buckley.
Buckley.
Buckley,
yeah.
because
He was very rigid.
And about what time was he there?
Well, he was there all through the 30s. I guess, I don't remember, 25, shall we say, well, he was there when they tore down the post office. Say 25 to 40, but I could be way off on those dates.
He was there a long time because I remember he was there
Does
when
that
we
sound
were in
right
high
to you,
school.
Betty?
Just a little parenthetical note, Marty and I talked with Martha and Stacy Rankin a while back.
Oh, did you?
And
That should have been wonderful.
it was great fun. And one of her side comments was, "Oh, the Irish, they were all servants." You know, it's exactly the way she put it.
tell her what was it Father Buckley that told you about Aunt Jenny King's girl?
Yes,
This is
Grandmother Gotwald, they had a maid in the house.
actually Aunt Jenny had the maid.
Well, grandmother started, I always heard, and then of course Aunt Jenny took over. Aunt Jenny was the daughter of the kings. So Mary T, as we always called her, got old, and my father and Robert Remsburg's father, Fred Remsburg, decided they go to see Father Buckley, where Mary T, as we called her, name was Tarpey, or Mary Tarpey, could go in her declining years. And so Father Buckley said to Uncle Fred Remsburg and my father, "That's just the way it is with you Protestants. You take our people, you work them to death, and then you turn them back to us to keep until they die."
Isn't that a tale?
But what was her estate? 10,000, wasn't it?
Her estate was $10,000.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I
they
don't
didn't
think
pay
she never got more than $10 a week.
dollar. You think she got as much as
I
$10?
think I remember hearing at the end she got $10 a week.
But I bet you didn't start out with that.
Oh no,
I'm
probably
saying
$2.
$10,000.
But
She got board and room.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yes,
board and
clothes
room and
and
clothes and
everything.
everything. She had nothing to spend it for except probably 50 cents to St. Raphael's Church. Maybe a quarter
I believe this.
a
I
week.
really do. As I'm going around picking up tales, for instance, Margaret O'Neill's grandmother. Now that's a wonderful story, which I'm not going to tell now. Tape recorder. This is John Gotwalds. Same thing. Great thrift and wonderful management.
But, and Mary T, and there was some lovely Tarpey families. There was a lovely Tarpey family in this town. And my father tried his best to get her to leave her $10,000 to this Tarpey family. Absolutely not. It went back to her brothers or sisters in
In
Ireland.
Ireland.
You know what? The way he told it, nah, I don't know, I was too young. They didn't get a nickel of it. It all got washed up in lawyer fees and stuff like that. Not 1 cent.
Sometimes those bequests were brought back to the crown
Could have been.
uh,
Could have been.
from
That's
Ireland.
all I know is what he said.
That's another one from Margaret O'Neill's story.
Is it?
Hmm.
Well, I'm awfully anxious to talk to her. I talked to her the other night. We left her glasses up there playing bridge, and I was so happy she did.
No, this is who, Mrs. Tarplin?
Margaret O'Neill.
Oh, Margaret O'Neill. Oh, yes. What a lady.
Yeah, I was real happy about that.
Uh-huh.
Her house is charming.
Oh, John, you didn't say about the Keystone being down at the Arts Center.
Oh, that's
The
right.
building your father built. And all the, you didn't talk all about the houses, all your houses your father built. And all
Well,
the-
you can just say that I'm making a photographic history of some, and it'll never be all of them, the houses that my father built in Springfield. Houses and buildings.
Great.
All
That's
right.
a useful thing to do,
Yeah,
besides
but
of
I haven't.
joyous.
I've been working on it, but I haven't got too far. I started out before I got sick, and then I sort of couldn't do it last summer. I just don't think I had the go power.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
this
I'm
summer
starting out again.
sure.
You said he also built bridges, John?
He built bridges for the railroad company just as a regular employee. But he was a graduate from Lehigh.
Are there any of those bridges around
Oh
Springfield?
no, they were all railroad bridges on the Burlington Railroad
Oh.
out in Iowa and Kansas and wherever the Burlington goes.
I've got another story I want to try out on you. I was
Okay.
told that as draymen took their perhaps one-horse wagon east on up that big hill that where the water tower is,
Yeah.
that was higher then than it is now. Right? Or steeper? I was told that they were
On
called.
Main Street.
Hmm. Anyway, this story doesn't make a lot of sense, but I was told that there was a 1, 2, 3 horse unit of measurement for how steep and how steep that hill was and how hard it was to get the loads up.
That's
And they either
interesting.
called it a 1-horse load or a 2-horse load or a 3-horse load.
Isn't that interesting?
I just can't
Well,
vouch
doesn't
for it.
that make sense?
Sure.
What's
Well,
wrong with the difference between that and the horsepower
Well, all right.
on an engine?
Yeah. Mhm.
Gasoline engine.
I had
You know.
never heard it before
I never did either.
until the other day, and I just thought I'd check it out on you.
Well, it makes perfect sense. Sure.
I was wondering if they would
Well-
drop their horses as they came up to the top of the hill.
Send
bring
them
'em
back,
down again.
just like they did on the railroads.
Did they?
Well, you know, they'd send out to go up a grade. They'd have 3 engines and a pusher maybe,
Yeah.
and then when they got up the grade, the old pusher would unhook and go back to the roundhouse. The same idea.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Just no water.
I wish I had closer to mind that charming little book called Yesteryear in Clark County,
Oh, yes.
and it has charming little anecdotes of this
Come
sort.
on, break that. Just
Crook my arm here. I will.
Yeah, we used to have that book. I don't know whether we still do it now.
Yeah, I
Thank you. I'll
think we
catch one in
do.
a little bit.
I think we do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, get you some tea, more tea.
I'm just fine, thank you. I'm
Oh,
so
come
happy.
on, you want some more.
No, really, I don't want to break this up. I'm just having a nice time with this.
I want some more, and I don't want
Oh,
to.
you want
I'll
some
get-
more?
I'll get you
All right,
guys
then
some.
if you're going to have some more, I will have some more. I want to be sure to ask anything you may know about Margaret Baker. Do you know anything about her? Do you have any
What?
contact with her?
Ed, have you talked to Ed Leffer?
No.
Ed Leffer's one. He tells the best stories about Margaret Baker.
All right.
Do you think he might have some programs of Margaret's presentations over the country?
Nice.
Wonder who has
And I'll
them.
tell you why. Altrusa is interested in establishing a literacy room or suite down there in the new library.
Oh,
And we would like to be able to put some things up that she has
I wonder who
that
has
she
her pictures.
done. I don't know. I asked about the films and I was told they were all dissipated. They're just gone.
Oh, I can't
But we
believe
would like
that.
to have a little memento case It has some of the programs, the lecture programs that
Yes.
she did. And
Oh.
Mhm.
Now
Um,
somebody
I'm-
must be able to find those.
I'm supposed to call Mr. Lupfer about it, and he reminded me that I'm supposed to call him. But
Yeah.
these are the things that belong to Margaret are just gone.
Yeah.
And she was a wonderful contributor to the
Oh, I
history of
went to a lot of her
Springfield.
lectures.
Mhm.
The other thing I was thinking was, with all the money that I've discovered recently, that Alan Bozart, Morgan
Mm.
White's staff left the library,
At
or
the
the
Art
art center. Do you have anything on her background at all?
I don't know. I didn't look. It's a good thing to find out, though. I would imagine that there would be a good deal of material, if not here, then certainly available.
Wouldn't Pat Catron have some things down there?
She would be the first person to start with.
She'd be the first person to start with,
Mhm.
because I think with all she did, we ought to have a nice little biography of her.
That ought to be in the Historical Society records too, because
Yes.
she made many contributions to the city of Springfield.
I gotta go back here and figure out how to do this. That's hers.
Uh, you know, their mother and my mother were very close.
Are you talking about Helen?
Helen and Pauline's mother and my mother were very close. And I've always heard that she drove the first lady to drive an automobile in Springfield. And her name was Bozart. Helen Bozart and Pauline Bozart.
Oh,
The
Helen
history of the
Bozart.
Bozart family might be an interesting one to
Yeah,
come up with that, because they had industry in Springfield over the years.
the Bozarts.
I talked to Halsey last week,
What he said.
and we were not talking family. We were talking the Bozart Company
Yeah.
and the development of that company. So we really didn't get to any other businesses beside his own.
Now, Helen was unusually talented.
Oh,
Well.
yeah, very, and awfully nice too.
Yes, she was.
And her father, you know, was a dentist. I went to him as a child, Dr. Bozart.
I didn't remember that.
You're too young.
No, I'm not. Not that much older than you are.
Would Ed Lupfer be compatible with Bob Rohr and Mary Mills at a colloquium about Margaret Baker?
Well, how would you get?
Well, I just call him up and say, hey, come sit around the table.
Who
Well,
did
Mary
you
Mills
say
seems
now?
to.
Mary Mills, Joe Mills' wife, Joe Mills' widow,
Well, she'd be a good one.
and Bob Rohr.
Why would you put
Well,
him
he
in?
worked for Champion for a long time.
How about Paul Pence?
Champion?
Paul Pence? Paul Pence.
He didn't work for Champion, did he?
Well, I think so.
He
Maybe
worked
misinformed, but...
He worked for the thermometer company.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Because he gave me a thermometer.
Ohio Thermometer?
Uh-huh. What's the guy's name? This is where I have my problem.
Can't always call it up, and I can't either.
Mm-mm.
Oh, well, I just saw him the other day. I can't come up with it right now.
You mean at the Champion?
Yeah.
You're not thinking of Paul Pence?
No, not Champion. I'm thinking of a thermometer.
Oh,
Well, it just
that
won't,
I don't.
it just
I
won't
can't call
come.
up.
What is Paul Pence's relation to Mrs. Pence, who was the grande dame of...
His wife.
Hmm?
His wife. Lucille.
Lucille.
Is he living?
Oh, yeah, he
Yes.
is.
Uh-huh. She's in the nursing home.
Oh,
She's got her
okay.
leg off, doesn't she?
I don't know about that.
Doesn't Miss Pence have her leg
Yes,
off?
dear.
What did Paul Pence do?
He was
Champion.
general
Champion.
manager at the Champion for
Oh,
years.
I think he's been interviewed.
And may
I think
still
so.
be general
Yep.
manager.
Yep.
I
He
don't
just
know.
would-
He's still around, John. He was
He
over at the
just wouldn't give
Historical
up, you
Society,
know.
and
Yeah.
I think somebody interviewed him. I was talking to Mary Mills. Said, "You want to
Oh.
join in with Paul Pence?" She said, "Nope, he does better with men."
Paul, I think, was over at the Historical Society, and Carol.
Yeah, all right,
talked
that's
to
it.
him.
That's it.
What about, now have you done anything on Henry Beckley?
My husband talked to Henry Beckley relative to aviation. because he was an early flyer.
That's right.
And he had a very short interview with him.
How'd it work out?
Not too well.
Why? I mean,
Well, I think he wasn't interested, or it was a long time back, or it wasn't pertinent. But I think and he didn't know Marty very well. But I think, and
Well,
the
there was
topic was aviation, so perhaps someone who knows him better and who can help bring things along.
but I wonder, wasn't there an excellent article in the newspaper about
Yes.
Henry and the
Yeah.
aviation?
But he would know so much about industry in Springfield. Henry would.
I'm sure he would if he would speak about it.
Well,
You know, if we
I've
get the
often thought about trying it out.
Well,
You know, 10 years ago I bought one of those and was going to do just what you're doing.
Well,
10 years has passed and I haven't done that first thing. It's still sitting in the box.
haven't used the first tape.
Never.
we'll be glad to do whatever we can to help you service this. What we're doing in in the course of time is we get our interviews that we're interested in getting, and then they refer us to other people who say, "Oh, you should see Henry Beckley, for instance."
Sure.
Then once those are done, we transcribe them.
Yeah.
We are then eventually, and I have a suggestion for this, we'll be having them edited and cross-referenced. Because, for instance, a lot of things
Yes.
that you have said will cross-reference to something else.
Sure.
And that's the joy of this.
Well,
Let's see
and
if
then
we can
there's
put it together.
Peg Knifer, you know. Margaret
Peg.
Knifer.
KN,
Margaret Knifer.
KN or NI?
K.
K-
N-I-U.
N-I-U-F-F-E-R, isn't it?
I think it's two
I've
F's.
heard it.
She's 95. She's at the Clark Memorial Home.
sharp as a tack.
Sharp as a tack. Oh, that's right. She and Isla worked together. Forgot about that.
And she knows that end of town pretty well, too.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
lived all her life in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just, was it yesterday we were there?
There's a nice section in this book called Women's Work for Love by Mrs. Amaziah Winger.
Amaziah Winger.
Amaziah Winger.
You know where she lived?
No.
733 East High. Oh, 733 South Limestone.
South Limestone.
Oh, just a block from the high school.
Well, she
She had $2.
tells in her chapter about the work being done. She calls it women's work for love because it certainly wasn't for money. And she talks about Clark Home and its development, and she talks about care of small youngsters like orphans and so on.
Was that Clark Home 1900, dear? I can't believe it was that far back.
It's earlier than that. I'll find it for you if you like.
No, it's all right.
And then, who else was it I was thinking about? That's still living that night. Now, if you ever get into Wittenberg, Robert Remsburg could probably give a lot of highlights.
Well, I was wondering, surely Wittenberg has its own history, don't you think?
Well, Bill Kinnison has written it,
Oh, yeah.
but
They have
Robert,
They have a lot of it, yeah.
Robert would probably know a little innuendo.
Yeah,
He's
but
probably
Bob
way
would
ahead
have
of me.
Bob would have an interesting slant on things, I think.
Yeah.
I feel so amateurish. I'm not a historian, and
You're quickly becoming one.
no, actually,
Doing a
Doing
Good
an
job.
awfully good job.
Yeah.
I'm just having a lot of
Doing an
fun
awfully
with
good
this.
job.
Now let me
Incidentally, John, early in the conversation, you mentioned Judge Geiger.
Hmm.
That was about 1850?
Oh no.
Was he later than that?
Oh yeah. He would be. I would say he would be almost a contemporary of my mother. 1870 to 75 when he was born.
Who was the professor over there that
His father.
Was he quite artistic and did a lot of clay modeling and
Geiger.
ceramics?
I think I may be mixed up with Ort. Now, have you talked to Corinne Nolde? Corinne
I called her yesterday.
Weatherby.
Uh,
Her grandfather, you know,
Yep.
was Dr. Ort at Wittenberg.
oh, I called her yesterday. And she said, "Mary, I can't talk to you. My family just came in. See you later." So
Why, no, we were talking about...
you mean Till?
No, not
No,
Till,
no,
Johnny.
Oh.
Corinne Weatherby.
Connie Weatherby. No, it didn't.
Connie Nolte Weatherby.
You know, really, we have started out to explore the women's place in this history, preferably working women. And of course, in this group, they didn't work for money, so
No.
we're shut down on that one, except for someone like Margaret O'Neill, who was with.
Well, and I see Peg Knifer worked. She was in that early social services. She has and she worked at the
Pierce's
bookstore. She has some funny stories to tell about that.
I hope we can get her on tape.
Well, you bet.
Yeah,
She's
because
the
you know
sharpest
she was
thing.
right across from the Black's Opera House,
Uh-huh.
and that's where all the big people came, well-known artists came, and they'd go over to the bookstore, you know, between being on stage, and they'd talk to Peg, because Peg's one that really knows how to talk.
And she has
Okay.
such a terrific sense of humor.
Now,
Now,
we do know one interesting thing. Lillian Gish was the first baby baptized at Good Shepherd Church.
Which is no more.
How about that?
now, ladies and gentlemen, we have got to come to terms here. Who will go with me to interview Marge Neifert? Because this is the kind of thing I can't do by myself. I don't know enough.
Well, I will.
John had said originally, back when you had your meeting, that he would
You know,
talk to Margaret.
you don't need me alone. I mean, or the two of you could just.
Oh, no, I don't.
We just
I'm not
need
going.
somebody to keep somebody going, and I don't know
Yeah, I'll
enough.
go.
Yeah,
Well,
John.
yeah. Okay.
You have a similar background of information to what Margaret
Mhm,
does.
mhm. But
That'd be
my
terrific.
immediate problem is finding out more about who the Gotwalds are, whose house we went in today.
Well, your immediate problem is also Mrs. Neifert. Neifert, I want to spell it Neifert.
It's Miss. She's a maiden.
Miss. N-E-U.
Neifert.
Okay.
Knifer.
Knife.
Like a
Like
knife.
a knife.
Okay.
Like a knife and a fur.
And
A
it's
fur.
it's not N-E-U-F-F-E-R.
No, N-I-U.
I-U.
Okay.
F-E-R. Aren't there two F's?
Mm-hmm.
U.
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Well, you have two nice chores in front of you: the Bookwalder House and the and Margaret Neifert.
How about Henry Beckley? You need more on him? Would he respond if somebody like John went along?
I'd try. I've wanted to do that for a long time. Just never. Somebody urged me, well, I'd do it. I have to be pushed.
Well, I mean, let's all get behind him. Push. You know, that's the old story about Satan: "Get thee behind me, but don't push."
That's right.
And we'll be the ones who push on this. You didn't get into any industry to speak of except for real estate. I know you were involved in.
Yeah, but the Baileys, Mrs. Lee Bailey is
Oh, yeah.
sharp.
And it was
and
all that.
Bob Bailey yet, and Sis Bailey. Yeah, they could come up with industries so much better. I mean, with the Bailey Company.
Mhm.
Now, I was interviewed for that magazine
Mhm.
and told some humor stories that some of the foremen had told me and wouldn't tell any of the owners, actually. But I think they could tell a lot about the Bailey Company.
Have you
Yeah,
not interviewed Mrs. Bailey, Mrs. Lee Bailey?
No.
You know her, though.
I know Sis Bailey.
No, Mrs. Lee.
No, Mrs. Lee.
She's
is-
always alone.
90-some years
She's
old.
96, I heard
She's
the other day.
another one that's sharp as a tack. She comes to most
She just bought a new,
figures over here.
well, Lincoln. She have a Lincoln Continental or a Cadillac. Just bought
I
a new
don't
one.
know. I don't know.
I don't
care
know.
less.
She's at every art center program.
Mhm.
If her daughter can take her, fine. If not, she goes
Drives
alone.
at night.
I think somebody ought to interview her.
Oh, without a
Absolutely.
doubt. And she's
Because
very interested in the society.
She
She
is
can't be
just
Too
lovely.
much longer. Charming.
This is Lee Bailey. What's her first name?
People don't call her by her
Bibi.
first name. Bibi. Yeah.
Oh, BB. Oh, this is BB Bailey.
Yeah.
Oh, well, why didn't you say so?
Have to
You
put
know,
a
Bibi?
half a dozen asterisks in front of her name.
Uh-huh. She's pretty
I
important.
hadn't
She's
quite-
prime.
I know the reason I didn't is because the Newsweek interview was a very good one.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
that's true.
professional.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. But she might have other things to say, you know.
She
Now,
might
there's
well.
one thing I want done before I'm gone, And I want somebody to go out and make some rubbings in that cemetery out there in what was Carol Baldenhofer's farm. There must be some volunteer group that would do that. Would love to do
genealogy
that.
groups have read most of the cemeteries around here.
Do they know about the one on Carol Baldenhofer's farm?
Where
It's way
is-
in the back field
Where is Carol's farm?
on Grant Road.
Well, now, we
On
don't
Grant
know,
Road?
Marie, whether she still owns it.
No, she doesn't own it, dear, but it's
Okay,
where I said her
alright.
former Carol Balden, but
It's
before
not
somebody
true.
plows it up.
Floyd Barman was talking about this as a potential activity for a genealogy group. And I don't know that it ever got off the ground, but that's what he said. He thought it would be fun for people who were so interested.
Yeah.
Now, who was it that...
Now, when you go out, we'll show you her picture.
You
Now,
said it's on the Grant Road.
Yeah, but I have to show it to
It's
you.
Grant Road toward the end of the lake.
Well, we'd have to ask Carol Baldenhofer who bought the property, and
I see
Oh, I know
Carol
exactly
sometimes
where
at the
it
beauty
is.
shop, and I
but she'd have to get permission from the new owners, dear.
Yeah. Who, I took somebody out that made rubbings,
Oh,
but I never could remember her name.
yes, she lived on South Center.
No, across from the team.
She was on the historical board.
historical board for years.
Lived on South
South
Center.
Center. South
Wood
Fountain.
Linda
Fountain.
Davis.
But no,
Wasn't Linda Davis?
No.
good friend of the Tians, Nancy Tian.
She
That's
made,
another couple that ought to be interviewed. But
yeah,
she didn't.
she made rubbings.
She
I could
did, but
think of her
you
name.
never got in touch with her again.
No. But she was on
Alice.
No, not
Oh.
Alice Singer. No, on the other side of the street. She was on the historical board for years.
tall and thin with light hair. Does that ring a bell?
No. I'll go back and look and see if I can find it. Marie, what is interesting about the rubbings? Are
Well,
they,
The Foleys.
They are the Foley family.
okay, are the rubbings,
Just markers.
do they have,
Dates.
for example, I think of one cemetery where there are a lot of
This is
drawings on the top, etchings
No,
on
just-
the top
just-
that show what industries people were
Oh no,
involved
no, this is just family. It's a
Okay.
family graveyard.
Okay, I'll see what I can find out.
So they don't have
about
pictures of little angels and that sort of thing like the New England
No.
cemeteries
No.
do.
But
that.
what
Some of them do.
They're
What?
just buried in the backyard.
what I've been gonna say, and that
Been
is,
plowed up a lot of them too.
No, this one was not plowed up, 5 years ago? When did you see it, dear? 5 years ago?
it's been a long time. I can't. It's terrible. I can't think of her name. Anyway, some years ago for literary club, I wrote a paper on the Reaper Kings of Springfield when we were the biggest manufacturer of farm equipment, in the world. And what I always thought was most interesting in that was that most of the expensive houses on East High Street all came from the Reaper Kings, or built by the Reaper Kings.
That's interesting.
And while they were paying their help 15 cents an hour, they were building these very expensive homes, like the Bushnell home, the Johnson home, the Margaret Baker's house, the Baker, Scipio Baker, Foose, that's the word I'm trying to, the Foose house. And who else had, of course the Whiteleys lost all theirs. Who else out there built expensive houses?
Helen Morgan's family had a home there too.
Who?
Helen Morgan's family.
Yeah, but
Did that come later, much later?
that came from her mother, people who had a jewelry store, Grove Jewelry Store. Helen and Pauline's grandmother was a Mrs. Grove. And did you ever go in their house? You ever been in Helen's?
I think so. Yes, I know I have.
Do you remember a big clock on the wall?
Yes.
Great big clock, almost as high as the ceiling. Well, that came from the jewelry store. Incidentally,
And
that,
her father was a dentist.
yeah. Well, let me think. Who? I said Johnson. Uh, the Amaziah Winger money came from the American Seating.
Was she out that way on High Street?
Who?
Amaziah Winger?
No. As I said, their house was 733.
Oh, that's right, South Fountain.
South Limestone.
Limestone.
Yeah.
In other words, what you're saying is that there was a congregation of people who primarily might have been in real estate on the north side of Fountain Boulevard, Limestone Street, that area,
Yeah.
and then out East High Street
East
would
High.
be the Reaper Kings. I bet you still
East
don't.
High was mostly the Reaper Kings. Now they were
Industrial.
scattered.
No.
Some like the Amaziah Winger, you know.
I'm searching in here for the name of the man who had such heavy industrial interests in the East Street shops and who lost it all when the Firebird.
Whiteley?
Whiteley.
Yeah.
What did you think of Whiteley? Do you know anything about him?
I don't. Well, you've heard the story about when they were trying some of these reapers out,
Mm-hmm.
and they were showing that one horse could pull, and he pulled his
He
own.
pulled his own. He must have
Okay.
been a bull of a man.
He was. So I saw that.
How'd they
Yeah.
lose their money?
Huh?
How'd they lose
The
their money?
shops burned, and I think it was just sort of poor management. They got too big.
Yeah, apparently there was some sharp dealings there somewhere
Sharp
along the
dealing
way.
somewhere in the shuffle, yeah.
I can remember as Whiteley when I first moved to Springfield.
What did
Well, now that was the son.
Yeah, I know it, but I mean,
Uh-huh.
Well, one of them was a school teacher for a while, wasn't one of the younger generation?
Thelma.
Thelma. He was-
I always heard she was a human adding machine.
That kind of mind.
Figure.
One of the Whiteleys moved west to Muncie too, and, established similar kinds of industries.
John, what
Yes,
about
our
the
industry.
Fishers? Were they interesting?
Fisher family.
Yeah, the one that lived on Limestone up here, back McCride.
Fisher.
Was that Maddox Fisher?
Yes, you got it. Maddox Fisher built that house on corner of Limestone. You know where the Kelly Kissel Company is.
Uh-huh.
And he also owned the Fisher Block, which was where the Mary Lee candy store is, which Gus' son later bought.
That one.
There's an interesting family.
Yeah,
Gus'
that's
son,
it.
yeah.
Gus' son
I
family.
think that's been very well documented. I've read
Has it?
about this, well, I hope so. I've read about this for many years because they had so many names of interesting people and
Yeah.
a lot of glamour.
If you need anything on Gus' son, there's a lady by the name of Jenny Snyder in our office that worked for them for years to give you a lot of background on Gus' son.
Jenny Snyder in real estate.
Helmet.
Uh-huh.
She worked for him for years.
John, was the Winger home one of those that was
It's on the west side of the street.
up on the little hill?
No.
Set up high?
No. Limestone's almost flat, you know, when you get beyond you get there at the high school.
Is that the Boy Scout building now?
It was the Boy Scout building, and now it is a doctor's office. I can't remember. It looks terrible. So
There
white.
were a couple of large houses, they
That's
were
it.
brick houses, one that sat up off of the street and back, and one that at one time I think was Littleton.
Oh, well, now that's right on the street,
Uh-huh.
and that was the old Hosterman home. There's Jack Hosterman would be a grandson. I don't know if you ever heard of Jack Hosterman, did you?
Wasn't Jack in school about the time we were?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, he's a year younger than I am.
Uh-huh.
And that's what the Littleton Funeral Home there on Limestone was the Hosterman house.
Well, one of the
And somebody else who would have been great, but I think he's pretty well documented, and no way to get any more, was Judge Johnson. If his son died, he could talk to you 3 weeks.
we've got a section here called Bench and Bar, and it's the thickest section in the whole book.
Don't you find Judge Johnson?
Well, I haven't found, I'm just looking it up now. 34. I did find Oscar T. Martin,
Yeah.
the first.
Well, you know where their home was? Where Geyers. 22
Oh.
stories.
See if I can find that pension board.
And,
I'll just have to look them. You know, this book is not has no index.
No.
No, I
Doesn't that
know.
drive
And
you
we
crazy?
really
It's a
need
little
it, so you have to
rough
run
to
all the way
handle.
through here, hoping that
Do
you'll.
you
Another-
still have girls from the colleges volunteer down the art
We've
stores?
had some marvelous interns over there. A couple of them are just more than pull their weight.
And did you know that Catholic Central, everybody who graduates from Catholic Central has to do community service?
Seems to me I did know that. and
But you know, I
hadn't
was
thought
thinking,
about
I
that
was
for a
thinking
while.
like something like that. Maybe
Uh-huh.
somebody, Catholic Central, could index a book
wonderful.
as his community service.
Right.
Wonderful.
That's a good idea.
Good
Right.
idea.
These
What?
are the kinds of things, and if we get a chance to republish that, that's one of the things we'll probably do.
Yeah.
That's already, I think,
I think
in the
some
public
girl would be
domain.
delighted to do that.
James Johnson Jr., O.B. Johnson.
James Johnson.
We have James Johnson Jr. in here.
Yeah.
1864, the names of the following persons are given as practicing law at our bar, one of whom, 1881, the following were enrolled as members of our bar. And that's where a number of familiar names are. I need to go back for my own use and ask, what are John and Nancy T, and why should they be interviewed?
He's a lawyer,
The lawyer.
and both of those families have very interesting histories.
Oh. Any of them
Nancy
commercial?
came.
Came from Columbus.
I know she did.
Yeah.
Any of those were involved in manufacturing or commerce?
Law.
Professional family.
Law.
This is a hard thing for me to get a hold of, is the professional families. You started off on some preachers, but the ministers and the doctors and the lawyers are harder to get a hold of, and school teachers. Because we can say the Bailey family. Well, there's a Bailey industry, but otherwise it's hard to know.
Well, did you get it? What about E.W. Tiffany? Is anybody going to do him, or is that a...
Who's E.W. See, I'm not a Springfielder, I'm
South
sorry.
High for many years,
Uh-huh.
and his family is still around, some of them.
Well, I don't know whether that'd be a good one or not. But some of these old industries, but I can't think of any people that are around
It might be your
anymore.
bailiwick.
Huh?
Mr. Tiffany might be something you would be.
Well, isn't Nancy Faust a Tiffany?
No.
No.
Who is
Her name
Tiffany?
Arbogast.
Arbogast.
Oh.
Arbogast.
Yes, we
Well,
got
Nancy,
them on the
what-
wide up.
John, wasn't her name Nancy Arbogast?
Who? Sure. That's what
Well,
we said.
Well, she married to Tiffany.
No,
No,
connection.
she married Faust.
Excuse
Right
me,
about.
tape recorder, I'm going to change.
You mean John Parnell?
Wayne,
No, the youngest one.
Don.
Excuse me, tape recorder, this is the second side of an interview at the home of the Gotwalds with Betty Fisher and Mary Cook in attendance, May 29, 1988. Okay. We're talking about the Tiffany family, just informally, shall we say.
Right.
Well, I want a very good editor on this tape, because we can lose a lot in the way we've been kind of,
Reminiscent.
yeah.
Was it Norman?
Norman.
Tiffany.
You
Norman
got it.
Tiffany, okay.
You got it.
Norman was my class.
Was he? Well, he was
And
when
one of
we
them
went to the
married
wedding.
a,
Married Pine.
One of them married a teacher. I can't think of his name either. He was at South High for many years.
Wayne. He was my teacher.
No, this name was. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm like you. I have lapses when I can't remember.
Well, we do, and just call us at 3 in the morning when you remember it.
Okay,
That's what we all do.
And I had
Yeah,
the
you know,
child in school of this one Tiffany. And I can't remember.
Still trying to think of the lady on the board of the Historical Society.
And that escapes me. I've been over those names not too long ago.
The Historical Society is mentioned very frequently in this 1901 book. It must have been a very dynamic and interesting society.
Oh, I think it was in those days.
Well, the whole tone of this book is very ebullient, very, didn't we do a wonderful job? Aren't we great? You know,
Yeah.
our labor is the greatest, the most labor harmony, our industries are brilliant, you know. they're really self-congratulatory, and they had a great deal to congratulate themselves about.
Well, I think they did too, and I think it's very nice they did. If they hadn't have been that way, they wouldn't have done what they did.
Oh, sure. In a short time.
Yeah.
You know, we really didn't get started till, what, 1810, 1812, when the Indian menace was dissipated.
Did anybody ever say that there was a mound where the old library was? Did you ever hear that Indian mound? Across from St. Raphael's Church. A big mound.
Never heard that.
Well, that's something we ought to check on. I think I'm right, but I could be wrong.
Floyd was saying there were very few Indian relics, artifacts, or anything of the sort left in this area, in Clark County.
Yeah. And you knew that Dave Collins, Simon Kenton House on the street there.
That's another one which I want to talk to you about. I haven't thought about that.
David.
Actually, who was the lovely old lady who lived in it for so many years?
Oh, yeah, that lady.
Speaking
Her
of
daughter's
names,
name was Wedgwood.
her daughter's name was.
Oh,
All right. All right.
she lives in
Well, we ought to
Seattle.
have a. We think we would love to see if we can come up with a.
Well, she'll tell you
Symposium.
all about
Carol
that.
Gabriel
And
was
they,
married there, I think.
Yes, I think
What?
she was.
Carol Gabriel was married from that home.
oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And the lady-
anyway,
You mean the first or second wife?
Carol Gabriel?
Gabriel?
Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Oh, Gabriel. Oh,
She's
oh,
the,
yeah.
she's the
Custodian.
curator that
Yes.
was hired over the society, and she
Um,
was married from that house, and I've heard her mention Mrs. Wedgwood.
yeah,
but,
but that
she
wasn't
lived with
her
the lady.
name. It
She
began
lived
with
with the lady
H.
out there.
Higgins or
Hunt.
Hunt.
Mrs. Hunt.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. You came to our rescue. We're thinking about-
Anyway, now you knew that was Elizabeth and Robbins and what's the other?
Liz Cole.
Liz
Lucy
Cole-
Robbins?
Yeah, Lucy and Liz
Liz, yeah.
Robbins'
Cole
grandmother was a Hunt.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know. What we were scheming about, and haven't gotten to talk with you yet, was to get people like Liz and Lucy, and Carol, and people who knew the Hunts, Mrs. Hunts, particularly, just have a gab fest.
Oh, that'd be
In
great.
memoriam, wouldn't that be
Nice.
fun?
Wouldn't that
That
be
would be
great?
Nice thing to do.
nice.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people who knew her, and it would be just a warm thing to do.
Well, Carol just speaks of her so
Doesn't she?
lovingly because
I guess she was awfully nice, and she's the one I remember. They say she walked over to the wedding and had the house there, and then walked over to the little house for the reception or something like that. Yeah,
That's
at
the
least
program
that's
we have
what
hoping to do in the fall.
Virginia said.
it's just beautiful the way this thing has snowballed.
It's mushrooming.
Uh-huh.
I mean, everybody like John Gotwald, he says, "Say, you've got to see so-and-so." And you say, "Yes, indeed." Oh, dear, where goes my free time?
It's like my father's buildings. I didn't think there were a fraction as many as there are. It seems like I'll never get them all, and I don't expect to.
You can get the major ones, and then the rest you can take your time and get them as
So that's
you
what
can.
I'm planning to do.
But you know how much postcards in Springfield are? That's what John was doing the day he got sick. When at the emergency squad came, they handed me his trousers and said his wallet was in there. And finally, when I was at the hospital, I wasn't a penny in it. John had spent all his money buying postcards of things his father had built. They were
That's
$5
great.
a piece.
What, at a...
$5 a piece.
Oh,
Old-
my,
old
oldies.
postcards.
Oldies.
Well, during the time of the arcade demolition, a little frame shop over on First Street was selling postcards of the arcade for 10 cents a piece.
Were they really? Oh, it'd be
Yes.
nice to get those. Well, I
But we
think
need to get some research done on some of these things and published so that the community is aware of its heritage more than they are. I think that's so important. I think people don't realize how significant.
And yes, and I
Things
think the
are.
children should be taught in school.
So do I, Marie. So do I.
Right, right. Well, my dears, I know you're going to come up in the middle of the night and say, "Why didn't I tell
I
the tape
know
recorder?"
exactly.
Well, you
that's
have a
what's gonna
tape
happen.
recorder, and let's get it activated and put right next to your dining room table or your bed or something, and have it ready to go. When you have these thoughts, you just push the button and say, "Tape recorder."
Yeah, here I
I
am.
want to tell you, here I am. And the
Wouldn't
other
be a
thing I'd
bad
like to leave with
idea.
you, I know you're long-term members of the Historical Society, but we are soliciting members, people who should be interested and who are not members. And if you find any of those, would you pass this on to them,
Sure will.
please?
Oh, wait a minute.
In June, July, and August, too, see, the pictures that are here, we do not have identified. Many of the photographs and pictures that we have, we can't
mean, these-
identify.
Get these here?
So June, July, and August, we're asking people to come in and tell us what they know about any of the
Yeah, well, see,
pictures.
John's got a
that we
picture you can't identify. Who gave it to you? Mary Miller, did you give it back? Or where'd you get that picture from? Church?
Church. Oh, I got it from Millie. I ought to bring it back to her. I just think that's the last thing she's from you. No. Oh,
The pictures are so interesting, but
But
you know,
now-
you can't identify what they are.
Now, what have you done with that lady that lives out of town that was so active and wrote all these books? Mary Scarden?
Mary's dead.
I know, but have you done anything with her things?
No, but Mary Scarden would be a good one to. Gee, I don't know whether any of her family's around here now or not, John.
I don't either.
How do you
It
spell
would be
Scarden?
Skardon. It would be a real feather in our cap to have some information about her.
Yeah, because she did so much. Really a lot for the Historical Society. And I think the lady on South Fountain did too, across from the tent. Why don't you go call Nancy and ask her? That thing's driving me up a tree. Marie.
I will.
No.
You know, another person I really want to interview is Mrs. Rugh, R-U-G-H.
Oh,
She wrote a charming book.
She's lovely.
And we have a,
Yeah. I want to do her.
with the judge's wife. We're keeping close to him. John,
Who?
never mind. I'll tell Betty about this. It's this little plan that we have.
Oh,
We're thinking about ways to help ourselves, and these are all involved. Mary's Garden, would she have books in the library?
she wrote quite a few.
Yeah, she did quite a bit. Some of the people in genealogy ought to know what Mary has done because she was just pretty active. I'll start some questions going. and see
Okay,
if
I don't
can
have to
find
worry
it.
about her. Well, dearie, I expect that you will come up with a tape of Henry Beckley
Okay.
and one of Marge Knifer.
Peg.
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 I
Peg
call
they
her
call
Peg.
her.
Margaret. Margaret.
Peg.
Are you
Peg.
going to go along with him, Mary, for those two interviews?
Sure, I need help.
I think your good wife it gives a delightful input. She says just the right thing at the right time with a
Yeah.
little humor.
And do you remember, she says. And
Yeah,
that's
and that's exactly what you
Uh-huh.
need. You need somebody who's well informed.
John
Any-
Harwood would be another good one.
John
wouldn't he?
Harwood.
He would be great to go with
Well,
Henry Beckley.
He's done a. Well, why don't you ask him?
You gonna ask him? You ask
No,
him.
I will not. You ask him. Grown up now. You can ask
Okay,
him.
I'll ask
I will
him.
give you anything you need, like tapes or a tape recorder or anything you need. But
Okay.
John is so self-starting
Yeah.
that you don't have any problem at all. He says he's just a joy. He's probably being lost to the North Woods these days.
Yeah, I don't think he's been.
Well, he's just about ready to leave.
Oh, is he?
Incidentally, speaking of
He
John,
provided a lot of
oh yeah,
research for
he did
us
a
on
lot
it.
of these papers that you see.
Oh, that's great.
Do you have any input on the Polo Club?
No.
No, you are never members of that.
Who would have, you know?
John Harwood.
John Harwood.
He has.
I think they were members.
Oh yeah, they still are. And he has some wonderful stories from Stacy Rankin about the Polo Club.
Oh, yeah.
And their hijinks, roughly in the 20s, more or less, 20s, 30s.
See, his father would have known all that.
Yeah. I have scrapbooks belonging to Peg's uncle, which are charming.
Peg?
Beautiful. Peg Harwood's uncle.
Who in the world would that be?
Well, he kept them, and
Walter Evans.
Evans, yeah,
That's her
Isabel.
brother.
her brother.
That's
Oh.
her brother.
Well, her father was Walter too, wasn't
Mm-hmm. But that was a sad, sad situation.
Yeah, it was.
Walter Evans running the boy.
They called him Brig.
Bree.
Bree?
Bree.
Bree.
Bree Evans.
He,
What did he die of, John?
He was trying to kill himself.
He killed
Oh, I
himself.
didn't know.
Suicide.
Well, I'd like to know. I'd like to have known that man. I have his scrapbooks, and I read them, and I would
He
like
was
to.
brilliant.
Isabel still.
Isabel could tell you all
And
about it. She could tell you a lot more than
And
Peg.
she's a delightful
Who's
person.
Isabel Bree?
Isabel Smith.
Smith. She could tell you a lot about Bree.
Well, I like the way his mind works. I'm very interested in what he chose to cut and put in his scrapbook.
Highly creative.
Just a shame. You know what he did, Mrs. Tatum's chauffeur.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a shame you all can remember her name.
I know it, and I hate to have you tell me.
Dorothy. Can't you think of it, Betty?
Dorothy
Zugelder.
Zugelder.
All right. Okay. Okay. Did you cut yourself?
I guess I did.
Dorothy Zugelder.
Zugelder.
Yeah.
South Fountain Avenue.
And she's nothing. She's not my baby, is she? She's something that one of you people will follow up on.
She's what?
Well, I don't know. Don't you want to do that, Betty?
I'm up on some things of my own here, John.
I don't
that
know
I'm
her
trying to
that
get
well,
them to,
really.
but I'll go
We
along
did-
with somebody.
We
that
did
knows.
go out and do the rubbings.
You didn't go with her, did you?
Dorothy and I went out together.
Why did I hear any more?
You probably weren't interested. Marie gets fed up with this stuff since she came from Washington, D.C.
You remind me of my good friend Mary Cole, who says, when the Bisses get together, the rest of us leave. And the Bisses are born in Springfield.
Some of those parties are pretty dull.
She said they go on and on and on.
On
and
and
I
on.
I know exactly the feeling.
And
What was
I-
Mrs. Zugelder's claim to fame then? Why are
She
we
was
trying to remember?
connected with a Yezo. When we go in the house, she claims that her family had the same picture we do.
Same
Oh.
portrait.
Well, I don't have to look her up.
No,
No.
she'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
Don't look her up.
Henry Beckley, when you're thinking about John Harwood, John, I think, will be in and out of town this summer. So he'll have to be caught on the run, or just
Okay.
tell him that you want him to call you
Yeah.
before he leaves. And I think he will be here for just another week or so. So I give him a call and say, when you come back, let me know, and
Yeah.
we'll go see Henry.
Okay.
Mary, I have 3 more people to get on that symphony
Symphony?
thing.
I have two. I
And
can't
one-
reach him.
And one is Tom Harwood.
Well,
I've had
he's
pretty good luck.
around.
Tom.
Call him at the office.
Yeah.
No,
Is Tom married again?
No, I don't think
no,
so.
I don't think so.
Isn't that sad?
Yes,
Mm.
it is. He shows up at the polo club from time to time on his bicycle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Very, very dashing entrance up that long hill.
Well, I think he's done a great job with that business.
Oh, yeah.
Tom.
And Tom did a lot from what his father had, you know.
Yes, I think so.
Nearly improved it. And let me tell you something else. Those Wilbur boys are doing a great job with what
Yes.
their father left them.
Indeed, they are.
Fantastic what they have. You
Repackaging?
heard their ad on the radio?
No, but I'm impressed with their packaging, and I like what they've done. I mean,
I
as a,
do,
as
too.
a consumer.
Yes.
Oh, I think it's just amazing. I've been trying to write now, and then I'm with these writing people. You're supposed to have to ask them.
No, dear, I don't think they know him.
Is
Won't bore
anybody
you
doing
with it.
anything with the printing business in Springfield? The printing business.
I think
Oh.
John
Hardwoods, yeah.
Harwood should, or
Go
talk
way,
about it.
way back. Way back.
It may be that they're not doing it, and it may be that John's interest should be focused on his own business.
Yeah. He'd be
Next
great.
time I see him, I'll ask him.
There've been several smaller businesses
Oh,
around.
he's-
The Barrett business.
He got Carol in line with Mr. Barrett,
Okay.
and they did a nice tape on that man. She said he was such a charming person.
there.
The
One
Barrett,
of the twins?
yes. They're printers, and they did lined books, lined forms, legal forms, and
Oh
accounting
yeah,
forms.
yeah, Dick and
That's
Bob.
That's a third generation
That's right.
business in
Yeah.
town. So he has gone that far at least.
And there's
Yeah.
nobody for the old Collier, full Collier.
Oh, Mrs. I'm getting your habit now. Mrs. Bud Martin
Okay.
has been interviewed
Oh, Rosie?
by Rosie.
Oh, sure.
By
Did she work? Yeah, you work.
Well, she gave her bid in that.
In the Newsweek interview.
Newsweek, yeah.
I
And
asked
she
her
got the call.
if we could talk with her, and she said, "Oh, that's old stuff. It's all been well documented, and don't let's not do that."
Well, that makes sense.
But that didn't go back to some of the older history of
I don't know.
the
A printing documentation certainly would. And there's a section in here on printing and printers.
but there's the old Farm and Fireside,
You know,
and Woman's Home Companion, and all those that were not recent magazines.
is it safe to turn this off now? Do you think
Sure.
we've gotten ourselves things that should
No,
be
you're
on
not going to lose anything because I can't think of the name. But, well, it just won't come.
here? Okay. Well,